Hello everybody, this is Chris, the old ass retro gamer, back once again. Today, I'm doing another video about the items I have in my collection currently, before I get into pickup videos and other stuff. And today I'm going to focus on the PlayStation 1. I've always loved the PlayStation 1. I thought it had a great selection of games. So much fun I had with this system back in the day. And when it came to having to sell my collection a while back, I managed to set aside a bunch of the games I refused to get rid of. I mean, there was a lot of games I knew that were worth a lot of money and were worth a lot of, they were worth something to me because I had a lot of memories attached to them. So I refused to get rid of them. And I'm glad that I did, because some of them are pretty pricey nowadays. But one of the stipulations I had when I decided to get back into collecting was, if the game originally came in one of those long boxes, that's how I was going to buy it when I bought it again. I was going to make sure I got a long box, and I love these things. I like the Saturn cases, but there's a lot of variations of what they look like. Some are cardboard, some are like half plastic, half cardboard, some are just a plastic one. But I have quite a few, and I'm going to show those off starting now with Battle Arena Toshinden. Well, the day that I picked up my PlayStation 1, I also picked up this game. And I played this thing nonstop for about a month. It doesn't really hold up nowadays. The gameplay is not nearly as good as it was back in the day. But then again, we didn't have a lot of 3D fighting games like this outside of like Virtua Fighter. But I played it when I rebought it, and it's still fun. I was surprised. I had this impression that it was a really slow, sluggish game, and it is not. It is really fast, and it is actually pretty hard. Also, Battle Arena Toshinden 2, which is the same. The sequel to Flashback, Fade to Black. Yeah, it's not the same as Flashback. It's not a side-scrolling, platformer. It is now like a 3D, third-person adventure game. I'm not complaining. It's different. It's just not a lot of people remember this game. Jupiter Strike. It's a shooter, kind of like, what was it, Galaxy Force for the Genesis. Really cool graphics. It's a lot of fun. It's another game that not a lot of people remember. And then here's one of my all-time favorite shooters. It's Philosoma. And the reason I always liked it was because the perspective would constantly change on you as you would play the game. Sometimes you'd be doing a side-scroller, left to right. Other times you'd be behind the ship. Sometimes you'd be in front of the ship, and you'd have to shoot things that are coming from behind you. It'd be a top-down, and the storyline was really sick and twisted. This is a lot of fun. I highly recommend that to anyone who likes shooters. Skeleton Warriors. This is based on a toy line, I do believe, which I never got into because by then I was out of touch with everything toy-wise. But the game is actually pretty decent. It surprises me that it's not a piece of shit. Viewpoint, which is a port of a Neo Geo game. Sad thing is, I do believe they changed all the music, because I did have the soundtrack to this back in the day, and when I popped this back in after I bought it, I was kind of like, that doesn't sound like what I remember it sounding like. But it's a isometric shooter, kind of like Zaxxon. It's fun. It is hard, though. And then one of my all-time favorite games for the PlayStation 1, Warhawk. I think I played this game, with purchasing other games in between, I did play this game for about 4 months straight. It's a lot of fun. The first level especially, I was trying to always do it as fast as I possibly could and not die. The graphics suck nowadays, but it has a lot of really good gameplay choices. I still find this game fun. Now we're going into the jewel case PlayStation 1 games that I have, starting with 007 Racing. James Bond Racing. Duh. I have this game in a generic GameStop, case, but I do plan on repurchasing it in a real one. Or I could see if I can get a case in general. But All-Star Slam and D-Ball. It's a budget title that is about as fun as Super Dodgeball was for the Nintendo. I highly recommend this if you can find it. Actually, it's pretty pricey nowadays. For the $1.50 that I think I paid for that, I think now it's going for at least $20, $25, $30. Apocalypse, starring Bruce Willis. This is a lot of fun, even though his quips get really old really quick. It's an action-adventure game. Alien Resurrection. Not all movie tie-ins suck. This one's actually really good and creepy. It's a first-person shooter, just like this, which is also equally awesome. I highly recommend you picking this game up if you don't already own it. I want to get a long box of this, though. Blade. Yeah, this is one of those bad movie tie-ins. It's really clunky and it's not all that fun. Got by on the name recognition only. And then there's Busta Groove, which in Japan is called Busta Move, but since we have Busta Move over here as that puzzle game with the Bubble Bobble characters, it had to be renamed. It's a dancing game, one of the first rhythm games I had ever played. And man, me and my friends, for some reason, became like absolutely hooked on this game. I mean, people would be coming over and be like, can we play Busta Groove, please? Can I please play some Busta Groove? Because the music was awesome and catchy. I mean, I even bought the soundtrack. That's how catchy the songs were. It's highly recommended. And there's also Busta Groove 2, which unfortunately was made by a different company this time around, and the songs weren't nearly as good, so therefore it's not as good as the first one. I mean, it's still fun, but don't expect the exact same thing as the first one. Castlevania Chronicles, which is a port of Castlevania Castlevania X or Dracula X for the TurboGrafx. Yeah, this one is awesome. It is a lot of fun. The music is amazing. And if you like Castlevania, you know what to expect. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Everybody loves this game. I've never beaten it. I do enjoy it. I didn't expect it to go into like this Metroid, Super Metroid type of gameplay style. I expected another side scroller, and I got this weird adventure game. And it really rubbed me the wrong way when it first came out. I was kind of pissed that it kind of decided to change what a Castlevania game was all about. But as the years went on, I really began to appreciate what the game is. And I am going to go back and I am going to beat the shit out of it. I am going to conquer that game. It will happen. Mark my words. Cool Borders 2001. Got this at a Salvation Army for like $3. Critical Depth. If you like Twisted Metal, this is Twisted Metal underwater. And it is awesome. It is a lot of fun. I went back and played this again, and even though the graphics aren't all that great, it is still just as fun as I remember being back in the day. Hard Trilogy. Yeah, this is another game that is a lot of fun to play that is based on movies that you wouldn't expect would make for a decent game. And it does. It's really cool. There's 3 different play styles. There's like a top-down adventure game for part 1. Part 2 is a like Lethal Enforcers type of shooter, kind of like Virtual Cop. And Die with a Vengeance is a car chase game. And I remember having a lot of fun playing it. I'm going to try it again pretty soon. I do want to get a PlayStation 1 though, just to play all these on. Driver 2, not as fun as the first one, because as far as I remember, this one does not have the director's mode, which I had a ton of fun playing with in the original game. Yeah. A game that is rising in price steadily, and I managed to hold on to it because I knew that it was going to be one of those games. Einhander. Yeah, this game is pretty awesome. It's a shooter by Square, which is they were not known for doing. They decided to go and branch off a lot back in like the mid 90s, and I was glad they did because this is a really really fun game. Evil Dead: Hail to the King. Gotta love Bruce Campbell. Anything with him in it is golden. Fear Effect. It's an adventure game that is very cinematic, told with cel-shaded graphics. I really, really liked it, and I remember this game got a lot of shit because you find out later in the game that the lead character and her partner are lesbians. It's like, who cares? That's yay. And then we have the sequel, which is just as awesome. Yeah. Why did this game get so much crap? I really want to see a third one on modern-day consoles. That would be awesome. It's like, people back then did not have open minds. The Fifth Element, another one of the bad movie tie-in games. Even though I love the movie to death, I really had to have this game just because I'm a fan of the movie, even though I knew how bad it was because I did own it back in the day. And here are the games that I refuse to sell because of what they are. Final Fantasy Anthology. This has Final Fantasy 5 and 6 in it. Pretty awesome games. We all know that Part 6 came out over here for the Super Nintendo as Final Fantasy 3. But yeah, I had to hold on to these, all of these, like the Final Fantasy Chronicles. Has Final Fantasy 4 and Chrono Trigger on it, both with new cutscenes and whatnot. Yeah, amazing games. Final Fantasy 4, which was Final Fantasy 2 on the Super Nintendo over here, is my favorite in the series. I've always loved that one. The music and everything about it was just absolutely pitch perfect. I still hold that game up here. It's pretty high on my list. Final Fantasy Origins, which has Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on it. Final Fantasy 7, we all know that one's amazing. Don't need to say much. Final Fantasy 8, it's pretty good too. Final Fantasy 9, which brought it back to fantasy after all the sci-fi stuff that they were doing for a little while. But yeah, this one is pretty awesome as well. I have never beaten it though. Hot Wheels Turbo Racing, it's a pretty fun racing game that adds in like a trick system where you can make your car flip in different directions and do really crazy tricks and stuff. For something that has the Hot Wheels brand on it, I would not expect it to be as fun as it is. Next is another one of my favorites, Kagero Deception Part 2. Yeah, this is like a forgotten classic. Like, I remember when I first rented this game from this video store called Ken's Video by me. I played this game all night. I mean, I was up to the wee hours of the morning because you basically play as a villain trying to keep people out of your house, and you have to set all these crazy traps that kill the intruders extremely violently. And it is a lot of fun, and it has like a really cool strategy element to it that I really ate up. There's actually 3 games in that series. Marsh and Gothic, Unification. I actually just picked this up the other day, and I have not had a chance to play it yet. But it looks kind of like a graphic adventure type of game. It's in the third person. It sounded interesting. I was reading the back of it at the store, and I was like, well, you know, it's only $4, so you know, why not? Maybe I'll do a review of it in the future, because that I don't ever remember seeing that in the store back in the day. Mission Impossible. Yeah, it's actually a pretty fun espionage thriller game. Yeah, it's like the precursor to like, you know, Splinter Cell. It's a lot of fun. Another one that's based on a movie that did not suck. Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Yeah, I remember this game being kind of broken. It had a lot of glitches in it, and you know, some of the characters that they added into it to fill out the roster even more than Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 did. It just kind of like ruined the way the game played. I mean, yeah, it was not all that fun. But it is still Mortal Kombat, and I love me some Mortal Kombat, so, you know, of course I'm going to have that. Nuclear Strike. It's part of the Desert Strike series from Electronic Arts. I picked this up for like $2, I do believe. 1, which is an amazingly awesome action game. It's kind of like Contra, but the camera swings around your character all the time, and you do all this crazy movie-type stuff, like you're running across a bridge, and there's a wall full of windows in front of you, and a helicopter is flying along the windows and blowing them all out as it's shooting at you and blows up the bridge behind you as you're running. It is a ton of fun. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on in this game. I highly recommend that one. This one is a game my brother walked in on me playing and proclaimed that it is the Fatty Boom Batty of video games. Parappa the Rapper. I don't really need to say much about this game. It's a really fun rhythm game. Pick it up. The music is catchy as all hell, and it will be stuck in your head for weeks. Quake 2. Awesome first-person shooter, even though it's completely dated at this point. But, you know, I mean, it's a classic for a reason because it is fun as all hell. Silent Hill, another great survival horror game. I'm gonna try to pick up all the games in this series if I can. Sled Storm, it's a really cool snowmobile racing game with really cool music by like Rob Zombie and who is it? Slamming Sounds of Rob Zombie, Econoline Crush, Uberzone, Easy Rollers, Dom and Roland. I have no idea who those people are except for Rob Zombie, but they're in there. Soul Blade, the precursor to Soul Calibur. It is awesome, even though the graphics aren't nearly as good as Soul Calibur for obvious reasons. Soviet Strike, yet another game in the Strike series, like Nuclear Strike. Star Gladiator, Episode 1. Yeah, It's a fighting game by Capcom, and it's kind of like a sci-fi version of Virtual Fighter, and it is not very good. Although there is a sequel that came out for the Dreamcast that is superior to this in every way. Star Trek Invasion. It's like a Wing Commander game with Star Trek, stuff in it. And it is fun as all hell. I remember this game got great reviews when it came out, and I usually was weary when it came to Star Trek games because they had a reputation for not being good at that point in time. But I was pleasantly surprised by this one. Star Wars Dark Forces. It's Doom with Star Wars characters. Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles. Even though it has to do with Episode 1, it's basically just Jedis taking out every single thing in sight. And you can play as, 5 different Jedi? Maybe unlock more? As long as you can play as Mace Windu with a purple lightsaber, I'm all for it. That's a bad mother... Star Wars Masters of Terras Kazi. Yeah, this was a bad idea for a fighting game. Star Wars characters, like when you've got Luke Skywalker, and he's swinging a lightsaber at Chewbacca, who blocks it with his forearms... I know that that's how fighting games work, but when you've got Star Wars stuff in the mix, it's just kind of like, really, you should just not even bother. Not to say it's a bad game. I mean, it is a bad game, but it's not like I would rip my eyes out bad. It was just a really bad idea. Star Wars Rebel Assault 2. I need to buy a PlayStation 1 to play this game because right now I'm playing all of my PS1 games on my PS3, and none of the full motion video scenes work, and it actually crashes whenever I try to play it on my PS3. So this is a really fun Wing Commander-esque game that has some of the coolest, actually some of the best full-motion video cutscenes you'd see during this time period when this came out, next to like Wing Commander 3. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. I had an obsession with this game when it came out, and I played it for probably 6 months and never really put it down. I don't know why, it's just this one really appealed to me for some reason. And then there's also Tempest X, which is a port of Tempest 2000 for the Atari Jaguar. Same music, same graphics. Actually, they're a little more psychedelic than the ones for the Jaguar, if that was even possible. But it's a lot of fun. The music in this game is amazing. Tomorrow Never Dies, based on a Bond movie. It's not GoldenEye, but it's not bad either. Like an offshoot of Parappa the Rapper, it's Jammer Lammy. Except for being rap, or it has to do with rapping. This one is all about a rock band. And it's fun. The songs, I think, in this one are actually catchier than they are in Parappa the Rapper. There's Vampire Hunter D, which is actually a pretty decent Castlevania clone. It actually went 3D when Castlevania was just about to as well. And it's beat it to the punch. And it's not that bad. I love the anime that it's based on, too. And then there's Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom. I'm not as much of a fan of this as I am of Part 3, which I do want to find a PlayStation 1 version of. I know they have it at a store that I go to. I've seen it. But, I mean, it's still Wing Commander, and therefore it is pretty awesome. And then I actually do have a lot of imports. Starting with Beatmania. I actually have a Japanese PlayStation 1 that I bought just so I could play this game. Because there was a little arcade that I used to go to back in the day that had Beatmania 3rd Mix, and I would go there just to play that game because I had so much fun doing the little DJ wiki stuff. And when I realized that they had come to the Japanese PlayStation and not the American, I went out of my way, really, really far out of my way, to get a copy of this and a Japanese PlayStation, along with Appen 3rd Mix, which is the one I was always playing in the arcade, Appen 4th Mix, Appen 5th Mix, Appen 6th and Core Remix. You see a pattern forming here? Appen Gotta Mix, because you gotta mix. Gotta mix too. Why not? And then also another game they had at the arcade there was Guitar Freaks, which is the precursor of Guitar Hero. And I still have the controller for this and I still have the controllers for Beatmania too. Along with Appen 2nd Mix. And I also have the Japanese version of Jammer Lammy. You can see it that way. There was no real cover to it when I bought it. Somebody tore the front label off the instruction book. The reason I needed to get this was there was a level deleted out of the American version where Lammy goes to hell. and it was really kind of creepy, and they didn't think that American audiences can handle it, but because we're stupid and we can't handle edgy things. But I had to have it when I found out that, and because I love this game, and I'm glad I have it. I only paid like $7 for it, I think, back then. And then Vib Ribbon, which is a very strange rhythm game where you're like this little wireframe character, and depending on the beat of the music, a terrain shift will happen, and it's a specific button you have to press to get over that piece of terrain. So if there's a point, you have to hit like square. And whenever there's a point like that, you have to hit square. And if there's a dip, you have to hit circle. And when all these things are in a row, so you have to remember which button goes to which obstacle. And it gets really complicated very fast, but it is really fun. Again, that's it for my PlayStation 1 games. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, suggestions you want to throw my way, please do so in the comment section. Give me a thumbs up if you like. I'm not a fan of a thumbs down. But feel free to share my episodes and whatnot. But I really look forward to hearing and getting some feedback from the audience. So let me know what's up, what your thoughts are of the show, if you want me to change anything. And until then, I'm Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, signing off.